talking about what's happened with poor Leslie Jones, who's the star of Ghostbusters. She's one of the stars anyway. Saturday Night Live. She's a comedian, very, very funny, and her star is certainly on the rise. But unfortunately, her personal information was hacked, leaked, all that kind of stuff. Nude pictures came out. So how do you secure your accounts, your social media accounts, private online information, emails, all that kind of stuff? Obviously, there's so much to this. Cybersecurity, data protection is huge now more than ever. So joining us on ATN is Shawn Tuma. He's a cybersecurity expert. You can check him out at solidcounsel.com. Shawn, so how about it? Do you think someone like Leslie Jones, she would have a good system around her, but it's not necessarily about that. It's about letting your guard down, I think, a little bit. What do you think?
I think you're exactly right. You know, most of the time when we hear about people being hacked, especially when we're talking about celebrities, it's not that they're really hacked in the traditional sense of a code or technologically based attack on the network or the system. It's usually a result of social engineering. And in this case, Leslie Jones' site was a Tumblr site, likely had pretty good security in place. The most likely reason for why this could have happened would be someone using information from her that's been publicly available to guess her passwords, her security questions, or things like that.
Yeah, and when we see these kind of things happen, who are these people? I mean, are we talking about somewhere in Eastern Europe? Are we talking about in Russia? Or we're talking about right around the corner? Is it all across the board?
It's all across the board. You know, oftentimes we're talking about a lot of these scams that are being run, cyber scams, fraudulent type, send me money and I'll, connect you to your long-lost uncle and you'll get millions. Those kind of schemes are being operated by people in those countries, Russia, the former Eastern Bloc nations. But something like this doesn't appear to be a for-profit type attack. This appears to be a revenge or spite based, and that could be from anyone. It could be from someone right next door to her that she may think is her best friend.
Yeah, wow, it's crazy. So what do we do to protect ourselves? What are some of the things we can do?
The most important thing anyone can understand from the very beginning is that it's more important to have good security that is used rather than great security that doesn't get used. And in that light, I always like to start with the basics, your passwords. Always change your default passwords because people can guess those pretty easily. Use reasonably strong passwords that have a mix of numbers, letters, characters. And in someone's case like Leslie Jones, who they know people will be out trying to attack and gather information on, when they use their security questions, consider using false information. Because in the old days, no one really knew who my mother's maiden name, right?
Right.
But now, Google knows all of that. They know where I went to high school. They probably know the name of my first pet. And so that stuff that used to be secret is now accessible. So when you use that for your security questions, people can guess that and figure that out. Have basic antivirus on your computers. Be wary of social engineering. That's basically where bad guys trick good people into doing dumb things. Sometimes it's responding to emails, it's clicking on emails, downloading programs, stuff like that. I mean, that's really, if you can do those very basic things, you'll come a long ways.
Yeah, and because we're seeing so much that's happening with these hacks and so much of that personal information flowing out there, what's also interesting is legally there's been some real blowback to that, right? So if somebody's listening and they have a company, what's their end of it to protect the people that work for them on their computer systems?
There is a huge legal blowback, and it's interesting that you phrase it that way because this is one of the few areas of law or policy where the victim of the attack, the company, or whoever is housing and holding that data, becomes the bad guy. Think about that.
Wow.
Whenever this company is the victim of an attack, it is now the bad guy in the eyes of the law and the public for not adequately protecting that information, whether it's customer data, whether it's workforce data, employee W-2 forms, things like that. Happens all the time, and companies have an absolute duty to protect that and to use reasonable measures to assess the risk that they have and then put appropriate defensive measures in place.
Yeah. We're speaking with Shawn Tuma. We're talking about cybersecurity, and you're a litigator, so you focus on this area. And now I would you advise clients that they have to have cyber insurance coverage?
I would say they have to consider it and evaluate what it does for them and document that process, document that they considered it and evaluated it. Because the way this is right now, the law is uncertain and it varies by jurisdiction. So I can't tell a client exactly what their legal obligations are, but what I do know from what we've seen thus far is their obligations are to be diligent and reasonable. And people will always second guess everything they've done when they have an incident. So they need to have a good documented system to show we looked at cyber insurance. We considered it, however, it didn't fit for whatever reason. So you can verify that later on. But cyber insurance is critical in many cases now.
Yeah. And so, and like I said, you specialize in this. So as far as the law is concerned, I would imagine it's just the Wild West, isn't it?
It's awesome. It is. And it's what I love about it is it's so much of a Wild West that it changes sometimes daily, weekly, monthly. And it's an area where we have an opportunity to influence the direction of the law and the policies that are put into place. And someone like me, I've been practicing 17 years. Many people would consider that not very long, but it's a matter of who wants it the most, who's interested in following it and keeping up with it. So it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it.
Yeah, boy, I bet. What's one of the craziest cases that you've had that you're really proud of, maybe, that you stopped from going to court or you were able to help the folks?
The facts aren't that crazy, but the evilness of the parties is. There was a case where I had two business partners that started off with very little money, couldn't even afford good contracts by a lawyer, wrote them themselves, and ended up making millions of dollars a month and from the technology they developed.
Wow.
And then egos came into play. They couldn't agree on who did more, and they started fighting. And one of the partners was basically, they had two separate businesses working together. And one of the partners was hacking into literally code-based backdoor features into the other's network and taking all the information that they were providing. And so we were able to stop that through the litigation.
Wow, and it just goes to show you, I like your setup there. It's like they tripped into this fabulous idea. They made millions, saying they're making millions a month is incredible. And then look what happens. And that goes to even be careful of your partnerships and making sure, like you said, they have contracts in place. Absolutely. And even bigger than that, keep your ego under check, because now the litigation has hurt all of them. On all sides. Wow. And it allowed their competitors to come in and see what they were doing and use the court process to learn about a lot of what they were doing. Yeah. Oh, you're kidding me. Of course, because then it would be available and they would be able to know, like you said.
That's right. It's simple. If people behaved rationally, I would be out of business.
Yeah, and that's so true. That's exactly it. There's something about the ego that, especially in business, it doesn't start out that way, though, Shawn, you know that. And then it somehow, I think success sometimes, that's the danger. That's why you have to have those contracts in place. You would know better than I, because if you don't, maybe you're not expecting that. But when you have that outrageous success, that's when I've seen that happen in radio with partnerships with on-air talent that just a great thing going, and it collapsed.
Absolutely. I mean, the old saying is a good contract allows friends and partners to stay friends and partners.
I love that. All right, it was fun having you on the show. Shawn, Tuma, thanks so much for stopping by and talking about cybersecurity. You can, again, go to solidcounsel.com. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Enjoyed it.